Good morning. Today is June 12th, but it was brought to my attention that yesterday's reading for June 11th got cut short. So sometimes I run out of storage and I have to clean out my phone. So when it does that, it just kind of boots me out of recording. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up for today, and I'm going to pick up kind of where I left off. And I'll pick up there. We were almost at the end for yesterday's reading. So I'll read the end of yesterday's reading and continue on to today's reading. So let's see. He then went in search of Ahaziah, and his men captured him while he was hiding in Samaria. He was brought to Jehu and put to death. His servants took him by chariot to Jerusalem and buried him with his fathers in his tomb in the city of David. They buried him, for they said, he was a son of Jehoshaphat, who sought the Lord with all his heart. So there was no one in the house of Ahaziah powerful enough to retain the kingdom. After he left there, he came upon Jehonadab, son of Rechab, who was on his way to meet him. Jehu greeted him and said, "Are you in accord with me as I am with you?" "I am," Jehonadab answered. "If so," said Jehu, "give me your hand." So he did, and Jehu helped him up into the chariot. Jehu said, "Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord." Then he had him ride along in his chariot. Then Jehu came to Samaria. He killed all who were left there of Ahab's family. He destroyed them according to the word of the Lord spoken to Elijah. All right, and that ends June 11th, and now it is June 12th, 2024, and we're starting with a commentary, the era of Joash in Judah. Until this time, all the kings of Israel and Judah have been old enough to rule for themselves. Due to unusual circumstances, Judah will soon have its first child king. This occurs when Jehoram's widow, Athaliah, I don't know if that's pronounced Athaliah, we'll say Athaliah, rises to power in a way that would have pleased her mother Jezebel. She kills all the royal offspring, including her own. Having done this, she usurps the throne for 6 years. However, one child, Joash, has been saved and hidden. At the age of 7, he is presented to the people as king by Jehoiada the priest. With Joash obviously unable to rule at such an early age, the affairs of state are conducted by the priests and military leaders. While there is some spiritual renewal during this period, paganism still remains, so much so that God calls the prophet Joel to cry out against it. Joel does so, using a locust infestation as the basis for a stinging attack and a bold warning of God's judgment. As he comes of age, Joash brings credit to his rule by ordering repairs of the once beautiful temple of Solomon, now in partial ruin. He later discredits himself by accepting paganism along with the others who ignore Joel's prophecy. In Israel, meanwhile, King Jehu destroys the worship of Baal, only to worship the calves set up initially by Jeroboam. After Jehu's death, both Israel and Judah are oppressed by the ever-menacing Syrians out of Aram, but Joash eventually buys them off in Judah. On his deathbed, Elisha predicts Israel's later success against the Syrians. All right, so we're in Judah, and this is 2 Kings 11 and 2 Chronicles 22, and it's around 841 BC. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she proceeded to destroy the whole royal family of the house of Judah. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Jehoram, took Joash, son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the royal princes who were about to be murdered. and put him and his nurse in a bedroom. Because Jehosheba, the daughter of King Jehoram, and wife of the priest Jehoiada, was Ahaziah's sister, she hid the child from Athaliah, so she could not kill him. He remained hidden with them at the temple of God for 6 years, while Athaliah ruled the land. And in Israel, then Jehu brought all the people together and said to them, Ahab served Baal a little. Jehu will serve him much. Now summon all the prophets of Baal, all his ministers and all his priests. See that no one is missing, because I am going to hold a great sacrifice for Baal. Anyone who fails to come will no longer live. But Jehu was acting deceptively in order to destroy the ministers of Baal. Jehu said, Call an assembly in honor of Baal. So they proclaimed it. Then he sent word throughout Israel, and all the ministers of Baal came. Not one stayed away. They crowded into the temple of Baal until it was full, from one end to the other. And Jehu said to the keeper of the wardrobe, Bring robes for all the ministers of Baal. So he brought out robes for them. Then Jehu and Jehonadab, son of Rechab, went into the temple of Baal. Jehu said to the ministers of Baal, Look around and see that no servants of the Lord are here with you, only ministers of Baal. So they went in to make sacrifices and burnt offerings. Now Jehu had posted 80 men outside with this warning, If one of you lets any of the men I am placing in your hands escape, it will be your life for his life. As soon as Jehu had finished making the burnt offering, he offered the guards and officers, Go in and kill them, let no one escape. So they cut them down with the sword. The guards and officers threw the bodies out, and then entered the inner shrine of the temple of Baal. They brought the sacred stone out of the temple of Baal and burned it. They demolished the sacred stone of Baal and tore down the temple of Baal, and people have used it for a latrine to this day. So Jehu destroyed Baal worship in Israel. The Lord said to Jehu, Because you have done well in accomplishing what is right in my eyes, and have done to the house of Ahab all I had in mind to do, your descendants will sit on the throne of Israel to the 4th generation. However, he did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit, the worship of the golden calves at Bethel and Dan. Yet Jehu was not careful to keep the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, which he had caused Israel to commit. In Judah, in the 7th year, Jehoiada showed his strength. He made a covenant with the commanders of units of 100, Azariah, son of Jeroham, Ishmael, son of Jehohanan, Azariah, son of Obed, Messiah, son of Adiah, and Elishaphat, son of Zikri. They went throughout Judah and gathered the Levites and the heads of Israelite families from all the towns. When they came to Jerusalem, the whole assembly made a covenant with the king at the temple of God. Jehoiada said to them, The king's son shall reign as the Lord promised concerning the descendants of David. Now this is what you are to do. A third of you, priests and Levites, who are going on duty on the Sabbath, are to keep watch at the doors. A third of you at the royal palace, and a third at the foundation gate. And all the other men are to be in the courtyards of the temple of the Lord. No one is to enter the temple of the Lord except the priests and Levites on duty. They may enter because they are consecrated, but all the other men are to guard what the Lord has assigned to them. The Levites are to station themselves around the king, each man with his weapons in hand. Anyone who enters the temple must be put to death. Stay close to the king wherever he goes. The Levites and all the men of Judah did just as Jehoiada the priest ordered. Each one took his men, those who were going on duty on the Sabbath, and those who were going off duty, for Jehoiada the priest had not released any of the divisions. Then he gave the commanders of units of 100 the spears and the large and small shields that had belonged to King David and that were in the temple of God. He stationed all the men, each with his weapon in his hand, around the king near the altar and the temple, from the south side to the north side of the temple. Jehoiada and his sons brought out the king's son and put the crown on him. They presented him with a copy of the covenant and proclaimed him king. They anointed him and shouted, "Long live the king!" When Athaliah heard the noise made by the guards and the people, she went to the people at the temple of the Lord. She looked, and there was the king, standing by the pillar, as the custom was. The officers and trumpeters were beside the king, and all the people of the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. Then Athaliah tore her robes and called out, "Treason! Treason!" Jehoiada the priest ordered the commanders of units of 100, who were in charge of the troops, "Bring her out between the ranks and put to the sword anyone who follows her." For the priest had said she must not be put to death in the temple of the Lord. So they seized her as she reached the place where the horses enter the palace grounds, and there she was put to death. Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign. In the 7th year of Jehu, Joash became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zebiah. She was from Beersheba. Jehoiada then made a covenant that he and the people and the king would be the Lord's people. All the people went to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They smashed the altars and idols and killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Then Jehoiada placed the oversight of the temple of the Lord in the hands of the priests who were the Levites, to whom David had made assignments in the temple to present the burnt offerings of the Lord as written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and singing, as David had ordered. He also stationed doorkeepers at the gates of the Lord's temple, so that no one who was in any way unclean might enter. He took with him the commanders of hundreds, the nobles, the rulers of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought the king down from the temple of the Lord. They went into the palace through the upper gate, and seated the king on the royal throne, and all the people of the land rejoiced. And the city was quiet, because Athaliah had been slain with a sword. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years Jehoiada the priest instructed him. The high places, however, were not removed. The people continued to offer sacrifices and burnt incense there. Okay, we made it. That's it for today. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.